So we are doing Mishlei Yud Aleph Ches 11:8, and I don't know. I know I don't always say this. This might be a short one. I'm not sure. We'll see. It feels very abrupt. The pasuk itself reads in a very abrupt way. Tzadik mitzara nechalatz vayavo Rasha tachtav. Okay, now we don't have our usual mayan to try giving the translation, but if anyone wants to try translating, fine. If not, then I'll do it. Okay, so the first word to look at here is nechalatz. Okay, so it is so the All Torah translation nechalatz is to draw off or draw out. Okay, or withdraw. And the term that you're familiar with probably the most is chalitza, like yibum and chalitza is the taking off of the shoe. So to take off in that sense. I don't know if you use it for other garments, but definitely taking off. Yeah, see, it says in number 1 here, sandal. Okay. The other meaning, and based on that, it can mean to be like to be saved. Okay, like they say delivered, but to be like pulled out of a situation. So the first way to translate it is tzadik mitzara nechalatz. A tzadik will be withdrawn, let's say, or pulled out. Yeah, sorry, pulled out from. So I think sa'ar is pain. Sarah is like more distress or trouble. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Vayavo Rasha. Wait, is there another thing I have down here? Oh yeah, sorry. And the other translation, which I don't think anyone translates it this way, but I just want to read it just for the sake of thoroughness here. Chalatz is to equip for war. I think there's a pasuk like chalutzim. I forgot where that is, but yeah, to equip for war. I don't think anyone says that. I don't think it means. I don't think it grammatically would work. A tzadik is equipped for war from distress. That's a very hard read. I'm not saying conceptually, just like to read it that way. But anyway, that's just another meaning. So tzadik will be pulled out from distress or trouble. Vayavo Rasha tachtav, and a Rasha will come in his place. Okay. So let's see what we have here. So the Metzudas in ציון says, nechalatz is inyan hotza'a ushlifa. So that's what we said. Hotza'a is taking out. Shlifa is like taking off, like the again he quotes chalitza, taking off the shoe. So that's nothing new here. Targum, I think, is just a straight translation. Tzadika min aksa ish tezev. So tzadik from akta or aksa is distress. Ish tezev, he will be saved or like enabled to escape. V'al bish tachosev, and a bad person will come in his place. Okay, art scroll. The righteous one is removed from affliction. So they kind of go like you did, Ariel. Affliction. We'll put that there. I thought distress or trouble was better, but whatever. But the wicked one comes in his place. Living Nach says the righteous man is extricated from adversity. Okay, that's taking a little liberties there, and a wicked man takes his place. Alter says the righteous is rescued from straits. Straits again is a fancy word for like dire situations, and a wicked man comes in his stead. Okay, so fairly straightforward to read. So what are the questions here? Well, we'll have our Tzadik and Rasha in this context, even though we can assume it's probably the same because we had another pasuk about Tzadik and Rasha last time. Yeah.
And how will the Tzadik be pulled away?
Yeah, how will the Tzadik be pulled out?
And it sounds like the second half of the pasuk is a substitution for the Tzadik.
Yeah, it does, right? So that's the interesting thing. So I guess we can ask. I want to divide that into two questions. One is how, just the reverse of this one. How does the Rasha come in place of the Tzadik? Okay, just like what are the mechanisms? But then also like the implication is that the Rasha is some sort of substitution. What is the sense in that? And just to show you, without giving you any ideas, just to show you Mefarshim who say that kind of thing, they use the phrase that, for example, Rabak says Kfar Yikrashi Malit Hashem. I don't think this is really an interpretation that gives us away too much. Kfar Yikrashi Malit Hashem Yisrael Hatzadik Mitzara. So it'll happen that God will save a tzaddik from distress. V'yavi harasha tachtav lios kofro, and the tzaddik, and he'll bring the Rasha in his place to be a replacement. Okay. Or here, so to Moshe Kimchi, V'yavo Rasha Bitsara Ba'avuro Lios Kofro. So on account of the tzaddik being saved, the Rasha will come to be his. Kofar is literally like a ransom. Like the Gemara says, like you can't a scapegoat. Yeah, right. You can't bring like a ransom for a murderer. You can't say like, oh well, I'll just buy off his death penalty. So I want to know like what is this notion here of the substitution or like ransom. Yeah.
Question on the reading.
Yeah.
So is there any way to, I was just thinking about that equipped for war and maybe a way to read it in, like, could you say from pain, a tzaddik will become equipped for war? Like,
as soon as it's funny, when I was preparing this, or when I was just doing the translation, I read it and it didn't make any sense. And then as I was reading it tonight, I was like, oh, I bet Zach will say that the tzaddik is like equipping for war from the experience of the distress, and then that's why when I didn't say that out loud because I didn't know that you were going to say that like for sure. So I wanted to say that's why I said it's not conceptually a hard read; it's grammatically a difficult read.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We got the telepathy. Thing going. Yeah. So look, I'll put this here also in case we want to play around with that idea, but. The fact remains. Hold on a second. Chalatz could also be, can also mean equipped for war, and the only reason I think it's not grammatically a good read is no one says it, and the one who doesn't say it that speaks the loudest is the Meiri, because whenever there are two ways to like two radically different ways to translate the pasuk, you could usually count on the Meiri to like point it out. But I'm saying it's not even the mirror. It's just everyone says it just means to be taken out. So that's why I think there must be some sort of like, grammatical thing that we're missing.
Right. Can I ask a follow-up question that's similar? Sure. Is could we say that from distress, a tzaddik will be pulled out? Like not going into implications, just looking at reading.
From distress, a tzaddik will be pulled out. And what would be the difference between that and this? Just to make sure I'm getting
well, it's just here the emphasis is that like he's avoiding distress.
Yeah. And
if we switched it, the emphasis would be that he's being pulled out from something. We don't know what yet. Like it would lead to some interesting questions, but the distress becomes just like a catalyst instead of the end results.
Oh, meaning like the distress pulls him out of something else.
Yes.
Okay, that's a read I would accept. Okay, so let's just do reading number. Let's do reading A, and then reading B. Okay, a tzaddik, from distress will be pulled out, and a Rasha will come in his place. Yeah, I think there's a probably grammatically fancy term for this, but the mem can sometimes mean from, but then it could sometimes mean like, it could sometimes mean not on account of, but caused by, like it could be a causal mem, I think. I don't know what the term is. Yeah. Okay, good.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
What kind of distress, trouble, or affliction?
Okay, good. That was the main question we weren't asking yet. What is the tzara in this context? Yeah.
I feel like, was that you?
Go ahead.
Okay, now I was just gonna say, I feel like this is related to 3 or 4, but are we assuming that what the Rasha is doing is like directly related to what the tzaddik isn't doing? Like, I feel like we didn't really talk as much about the relationship between, like, we said a substitution, but what is that substitution?
Yeah, so I'll add that here. What is the relationship between the tzaddik and the Rasha in this situation? Yeah.
And did we ask what does pulled out mean?
No, we didn't. Well, we kind of asked that here. How will the tzaddik be pulled out? Yeah,
That's
I'll put
how
it.
this time.
Yeah, what does nechelatz mean? It is a slightly different question, but I think we'll probably answer them together.
I have a radical approach right now, but
okay, well, noted. Okay, still in the question phase. I think another question we have to ask is, why was the tzaddik in this situation of tzara in the first place? And I'm not saying it has to matter. Does it matter? Yeah. In other words, it could be that due to the unique nature of that type of tzara, that's why this whole pasuk applies. Or it could just be any tzara. Or it could be as a nature that, like, in other words, like this. We know that from whatever, that a tzaddik can be pulled out of tzara in a lot of cases, but maybe this is only in this particular case does the Rasha come in his place.
Right. I mean, like, I feel like it's like that switch, which is the only new information here, because we know a tzaddik's ways will help him avoid troubles, and we know a Rasha's ways will help him find trouble. Right. So the only new information really is the fact that it'll take its place.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I have another question.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it possible that maybe the second half of the pasuk, who's the Rasha, and the first half of the pasuk is the Tzadik, is really the same person?
Is that your radical reading, Ariel?
Yeah.
I've never seen a pasuk in Mishlei say that, like have a tzaddik in one half and the rest in the second half it's the same person. But I will tell you something that might allow you to salvage your reading. So this from our morning Mishleic Shiur, because we usually go into it there. The Meiri in his Derech Nister, okay, in his esoteric interpretation of the pasuk, will often say that the tzaddik and the Rasha are the referring to the two parts of the human being. Like the tzaddik is the Yetzer Hatov and the Rasha is the Yetzer Hara. So it could be that within one person this is happening on a metaphorical level, but on a pshat level, then I don't think you could read it that way.
Well, it depends what the idea is.
Okay, yeah, you'll have your chance to say that later on, yeah. But I don't think you can read the pasuk that way. Yeah. Okay. I guess we have to ask our usual question here, but this is it's warranted here, which is who is the audience of this pasuk? And again, it seems like whenever we have a pasuk with a tzaddik and a Rasha, it seems like oftentimes the audience is someone who is who's not a tzaddik and not a Rasha, but can become both. But what we found is that usually it's targeting a specific person who is like there may paths to becoming a Rasha and may paths to becoming a tzaddik. So sometimes we're speaking generically, sometimes we're speaking about like a specific person who, I don't know, who's like prone to a specific path on towards becoming a Rasha, or like has some way that's like easily accessible to become a tzaddik. So it's more specific, like also I'll say who, like, granted, it's not a tzaddik tzaddik and not a Rasha, and it's someone who can become either, but is this just that generic audience, or is it more specific? Okay.
Also, just to ask these questions, but I think they might not be worth writing down because I can only think of one answer. But it says his place, like who's his? It seems like it has to be the tzaddik, but maybe not. And then also when it says his place, what place is it referring to? I assume it's not his house. I assume it's that distress that he was in, but like also that isn't.
Yeah. Oh, that actually reminds me, by the way. There is another way to read Tachtav. What would be the other way to translate Tachtav?
Under him.
Under him, yeah, right. Yeah. So I think I didn't see any Mepharshim who say that, like in this case, but yeah. So Zach just reminded me of that because it doesn't literally say like bimakomo, like in his place, but like Tachtav is just means like as a substitute, you know. Yeah.
Under him confuses me a little bit. Like, is that a literal under him, or is that?
So yeah, tachas means under, right? So tachtav is under him.
Okay.
But what that means is up for debate.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I feel like those are our questions here. So let us zoom out and then have our minute of thinking, and then as usual we will take a minute to think, and then what do you call it? And then people who have partial answers or half-baked ideas will can go first, and then after that people who have full interpretations. So let's think now. I'm gonna add something to one of the questions. When we say how will the tzaddik be pulled out, I think also like by whom / whom. Okay, meaning that it's very easy to say Hashem will save the tzaddik, right? But other possibilities are that the tzaddik is somehow saving himself, and for some reason the pasuk is saying it in a passive way, like he will be pulled out. And then the other possibility is by other people. So I think that's just another part of this question. Ooh, okay. Okay, anyone have any partial approaches or answers, specific answers?
Sort of.
Okay, yeah, I also sort of have one. Yeah, go ahead.
So I think this is really partial. Like I don't have all the pieces fleshed out, but there's just a kernel of something here, which is that I think that the revolutionary idea of this pasuk has to do with like the byproduct of the nature of the Rasha, which is that when there's, let's say there's like the example that's first coming to mind is like drama, like that's like a distressing situation, there's some dramatic thing, and we can circle back to the mechanics of how the tzaddik gets pulled from that. But I think the interesting point that he's pointing out is that the Rasha won't just be forced into that drama in his place. The Rasha is gonna seek it out.
Okay, good. Yeah.
And so it's like a byproduct of the way he operates is that he's going to be seeking out situations that are to his detriment and replacing the tzaddik, so to speak.
Okay, so I also had that same first step, but I think I have a second step to build on that. So anyone want to let's pursue this approach, okay? And then if anyone has any other approaches, we could take other ones. But anyone else have anything along these lines?
Yeah.
Not,
I'm sorry, what was the approach? I apologize.
So let me actually, yeah, Zach, you say it one more time. I don't want to risk putting my idea in there.
Okay, so it's basically the kernel of the idea is just that the radical idea that Shlomo was saying with his pasuk is that it's not just that a Rasha will be put into bad situations, but that like a byproduct of how he operates as a Rasha means he will be seeking them out, so to speak. Like I think that's why he's using the word like Bo, like it's not just like he's forced into it, but like he's actively pursuing these bad situations, distressing situations that the Tzadik is being pulled out from.
Okay, so I'm gonna go one step further here. Okay, so and it's possible. All right, I'm gonna give you an example of this. Okay, beforehand. So one of the Mefarshim says, as a review of Kimchi, okay, gives it two examples. First one I am familiar with, the second one totally not. He says, Kamo Haman Tachas Mordechai. Okay, so that's a very clear situation where Mordechai was in a situation, Mordechai and all the Jews were in a situation of Tsara, and then Haman basically like got in his place and got killed by the king. Second one, I didn't get a chance to look this up. Tarhika Melech Kush Tachas Chizkiah. I don't really know this episode, but similarly, okay. So I don't know if that's what I was thinking about it, but so just put that on the back burner. Here's what I was thinking. Okay, I agree with Zach that it's talking about like the Rasha is attracted to a certain type of situation, and then that's going to cause him to be in this situation. But I'm thinking like, what makes him end up in the? We understand how the Rasha is going to end up getting consequences of his evil lifestyle. Like that's all of Mishlei, and like Derech Roshaim Toved, like the path of the Rasha ends in defeat. But what makes him come in place of the Tzadik, like in that place? So here's my step, which is the Rasha hates the Tzadik and wants to destroy him, and his very efforts to try to destroy and bring down the Tzadik will make him end up in a worse situation than he would have been otherwise, and that will bring about his destruction. Now, again, this is a kernel of an idea. I don't know how this developed, but let's just think if we can come up. I feel like
that.
Easy to come up with examples. Yeah, structurally, this is certainly this is a methodology point right now. Sometimes your reading of the pasuk and your interpretation of it will stem from an intuition from the idea itself, and sometimes it'll stem from an intuition of like the structure or like how Shlomo is like pushing you to think about these things. For me, it's more from the structure. Again, the question I'm focusing on is like, how did the Rasha get into that place where the Tzadik was, and so it kind of here's an example of this. Okay, and I'm going to make up an example because I don't have an example on hand. Let's say you have a politician. Let's say hypothetically you have a politician who is a complete Tzadik. Okay, he probably wouldn't be in politics. Okay, but let's say you have a politician who's a complete Tzadik, and you have a Rasha who's running against him, and the Rasha basically tries to fabricate a scandal to bring down the Tzadik. Okay, so on the surface it'll look like the Tzadik is in trouble, right? But what's going to happen is because the Tzadik is who he is, and that we have to fill in the details how that works. So he will end up being vindicated, and it'll come out that the Rasha was trying to engage in this dirty politics, and then that will destroy his campaign. So the very efforts to try to bring down the Tzadik will put him in the same tsara that he was trying to bring upon the Tzadik.
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking of a similar example that I think I've seen in real life a few times, but like maybe less drastic titles than like Tzadik and Rasha,
sure,
but same mechanics of like someone with, let's say, a toxic agenda entering like a social group and like almost viciously trying to like badmouth either a specific person or specific two people to like get them kicked out from the group.
Right.
And if that person in response is like more diffusing and like non-combative and non-toxic in return, then eventually this person just creates a toxic environment for themselves and like voluntarily like leaves themselves,
right?
Because they just created an hospitable environment for themselves.
Yeah. I'll say a good example of that in a second. But before I do that, I'll just remind us that Tzadik and Rasha in Mishlei don't always have to mean the technical definition of Tzadik and Rasha. Sometimes Tzadik and Rasha just mean like the good person and the bad person, you know?
Right.
I want it to mean the technical definition because we have been talking about that for so long in these prokim, but you know,
there might also be an in between, which is like the behavioral actions,
that's
meaning
that
also, they're acting this way.
Especially because I was going to bring this up also, that you know the context of Perik Yud was about the Tzadik versus the Rasha. The context of Perik Yud Aleph, which we've been doing this year, has really been mostly about the Tam and the Yashar. And the Tzadik and Rasha were like, our understanding of the Tzadik and the Rasha are now developing based on our understanding of the Tam and the Yashar. And our basic distinction, again, don't worry, I'm not going to make this into a whole Tam and Yashar thing again. The Tam and the Yashar, we said, really has to do with your own internal relationship to your own values. And then that made us realize much more that Tzadik and Rasha really has more to do with your behavior. Not necessarily, there is a perfection of being a Tzadik and an imperfection of being a Rasha, but in the context of a Tam and a Yashar, then Tzadik and Rasha are really differentiated by their behavior towards the system, you know? And so some of those could still work even if you're not a full-fledged Tzadik. I have an example of this, but I'm going to stop the recording for this. Yeah. Okay. So, so what questions do we need to answer now? Oh, so the question we need to answer a little bit more is, if we can, I'd like to elaborate. So let's just elaborate on this. What causes my interpretation, not necessarily Zach's, my interpretation is kind of predicated on the fact that the Rasha is drawn into the situation because he wants to destroy the Tzadik. So let's just talk about why that is for a second. And this is not, I'm not making this up. I mean, this is a very common theme in Torah and in Mishlei of like the Rasha hates the Tzadik. But I don't think we've had psukim about that in this.
Maybe it's because what's driving the Rasha is like kind of like, let's call it like a pure self-interest. And so like they're you
can argue that only the Chacham has the pure self-interest, but yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah. Like, let's use our new term. Let's use our new term, which I can't remember if this came up in Morning Mishlei or here. Parasitic self-interest.
Right.
Okay, that's the term we coined for the Rasha. Right. He's a parasite, in that the difference between a parasite and a good organism, let's say like a fungus, is that the parasite, like another organism, will symbiotically relate to their environment and like do what's good for the whole, you know. But a parasite will just keep taking from the host in self-interest until it just destroys the host and then dies. So right. Yeah.
So right. So as far as how I think it relates to hating a tzaddik is that like it's not just enough for him to take what he wants, but his worldview has to match his actions. So because reality doesn't match his actions, he's in a constant state of dissonance. And the further away he is from like anything that reminds him of truth, the less aggravating that dissonance is. And so the presence of any tzaddik is just going to be this massive thorn into his view of reality and just create the most discomfort for him. Exactly. And so in order for him to like assert his like parasitic view of reality, he needs to destroy the thing that opposes it.
Yeah, I think that is a good, well-said explanation of why the Tzadik is hated by the Rasha. And again, good example of that is Haman and Mordechai, right? Is that I know there's lots of ways to learn the story, but like, you know, seeing, you know, when Mordechai, when Haman is, everyone's bowing down to him, and he sees this one guy not bowing down to him. And it's not just a random one guy. Like, he knows that Mordechai is not bowing down to him because Mordechai doesn't buy into his whole fantasy-based worldview. So the existence of a Mordechai not bowing down poses a challenge to the Rasha's entire like way that he wants to view himself in reality, and also a practical obstacle because the Rasha knows that the Tzadik is not just going to like like lie down and let the Russia like have his take over everything. So it's both a practical obstacle, but more primarily it's like a like Zach is saying, like it turns the volume up of the cognitive dissonance. Yeah, Michael.
Okay. I don't love your approach in general because I feel like it's reading into the pasuk. I understand because it's like a bare bones pasuk. It's not easy, but I would propose something. I don't know if it fits within your methodology for Mishlei, but I think it's talking about death.
Okay.
I think it's saying that, but meaning I know it's a little metaphysics, not exactly like in line with usually pragmatic living in this world, but I think it's saying that a tzaddik, no matter what, a tzaddik is saved from his pain, because since he has chelik olam haba, he has an existence, a truth that continues, and anything that afflicts him will be resolved. But the Rasha, it's saying that it comes in his place because the future of a Rasha, the nature of that personality, that ethic, is actual destruction, either through Gehenna or non-existence, depending on your metaphysics.
Can I ask a question on that?
Well, okay, yeah, you go ahead and ask a question.
I'm just curious because it sounds like you're talking about a different distress for the Tzadik than the distress for the Rasha, and it seems like in the pasuk, like it's the same distress.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So what I was gonna say is, I'm curious how you think that I'm reading this into the pasuk, because Davka, this is what the pasuk is saying. What I mean by that is, according to the way that I am reading it, the reason I'm reading it this way is the pasuk is saying that the Tzadik and the Rasha are. There's one Sarah that the Tzadik is getting out of and the Rasha is getting into in his place. But your way is it's something completely separate happens to the Tzadik and something completely separate happens to the Rasha. Like,
well, the problem I have with
no interaction. It's like two ships passing in the night.
Well, also, could we just to avoid muddied waters, could we separate the two ideas for a second and just like focus on I
also like to develop our idea first. Yeah.
Well, okay. I don't mind which one first or second, but I was just pointing out that like saying like defending one and asking a question on the other at the same time confuses me. So
right. Okay, sure. So let's see what we are gonna try to get into the habit of doing.
Don't forget my radical shots.
Yeah, I won't forget. Yeah. Approach number 1 and then approach number 2. So approach number 2, this is Michael's approach, is death and afterlife, or lack thereof. And then our approach number 1 is the Rasha will try to destroy the Tzadik, and not only will the Tzadik escape, but the Rasha will fall into the trap that he set, or he'll fall into the destruction he tried to bring about. Yeah. So we answered why the Rasha hates the Tzadik. So now the question is like this: is what does it mean that the Tzadik will be pulled out? And again, the Lashon does seem to imply that it's passive. So I'm least like, I don't want to say that he like finds his way out. You know, it sounds like either something outside of himself. Yeah, what were you saying, Ariel?
Wait, what did you say you did not want to say?
I don't want to say that the Tzadik like that the Tzadik
you want to find the mechanics of how he.
I want to find the mechanics, but I also want to rule out one of the mechanics that.
What do you want to rule out? Because I haven't.
I want to rule out the Tzadik saving himself directly.
Oh, why?
Because the pasuk says he is pulled out, not he pulls himself out.
But why can't you say he's pulled out with his belief system? I mean, it's his belief system that's pulling.
I'll tell you what I'd be willing to say is if you said that because of the way that the Tzadik lives, then that plants certain seeds or sets certain things in motion, and that as a result, then those forces will pull him out. I'd be fine saying that, but I don't want to make it seem like I'll give you an example. Esther in Megillus Esther, like that Esther, would her strategizing, her brilliant strategizing, I would not describe that as Esther was pulled out of Tzara. No, she pulled herself out of Tzara, you know? So like, I just don't think passive fits.
Could I also give
hold on, can I just say my answer
yeah,
for the question? I mean, because I was thinking that the tzaddik has a certain framework of how he looks at things.
Yeah,
It's a certain framework of what he's accomplished and his certain knowledge in the system that things will go appropriately.
yeah.
And it's ultimately all those things combined that will, just naturally pull him out of that despair.
Okay, so this is a really interesting thing. This might even be another approach. Okay, this might be another approach. I'll call on Michael in a second.
Well,
Sorry,
and
Michael.
again, I don't know if it's attached to my radical idea or not, but like I just think that answers your question.
Okay, so hold on just 1 second here. So I'm going to say this is the third approach. I'm not going to attribute it because it might be tied to a radical approach, or it might be a new approach that I'm coming up with right now. The question is, what is the tzara, right? So I was assuming up until now that the tzara was actual like circumstances that threaten to harm the tzaddik, but the tzara could just be the pain itself.
Yeah. So I have a radical.
Okay, is that your radical approach? Okay.
Well, it's more that part isn't so much radical as the other part, but I'd rather you guys finish this.
Okay, sure. Yeah, but just to So I think what I just said now is a third approach. So whether that is in line with Aurelius or not, that's a good thing. We'll wait for
I wanted to do just a footnote on approach number one.
Before you go, Zach, Michael had his hand up, but I don't know if he changed his mind or.
Well, I just wanted to clarify the nature of my question that I thought was being written. It's not like it's not supported, but you are bringing in the idea that the Rasha is attacking the Tzadik in this.
Correct. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Interestingly enough, that's close to my footnote as well, is that I just want to point out that for me, like, I think our approaches are very similar. And I think what you did is you offered one of the possible mechanics.
Yours is more conservative.
Right, exactly. And at some point it needs the mechanics, but that's why it wasn't a full approach. But I'm just saying that I think that there are other mechanics besides the Rasha hitting the Tzadik that would allow the Rasha to take his place.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so let's just finish off my idea and then we'll see if we can develop Zach's other mechanics, and then we'll go to Ariel's radical approach. I want to go to Ariel's radical approach before we go to Michael's life and death and afterlife approach. Just because, Ariel, you're indicating that this is not about death in the afterlife, and it's
for sure not. It definitely has to do with this world.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'd rather stay in this world before we before we depart.
I really love Olam Haza. I'm not thinking about it.
Yeah. So just to round it off here. Okay. So I'll take credit for this one, and then we'll do another one for Zach. So the Rasha will try to destroy the Tzadik because of the cognitive dissonance and practical obstacles he poses. Not only will the Tzadik escape, but the Rasha will fall into the destruction tried to bring about. So the question is, how will the Tzadik be pulled out? That's the only thing that my idea is lacking, I think.
How does my answer not answer your question?
Say it again.
It's his his whole personality, his whole outlook on this world that's ultimately going to support him in getting him out.
Well, I'll give you an example. Mordechai and Haman. Okay.
So hold on.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can wait, but I think there's a good way for you now.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Is the Rasha pulls him out.
Okay, go ahead.
Meaning the same way the Rasha is the one who's putting himself in his place by trying to destroy him. A lot of those same efforts create a path for the Tzadik out of that very same distress.
Interesting. So like in the example I gave before, really works out, right? Because it's the Rasha trying to fabricate the some sort of scandal for the Tzadik, like it's just going to highlight the Rasha's corruption and the Tzaddik's innocence.
Exactly.
Yeah. I would like to find other examples of this though, because I feel like it's the fact that we found one good example is not satisfying to me. But just to answer Ariel's question, so Ariel, like in the Purim story, Mordechai's worldview and outlook is not what saved him from Sarah, right? Unless you want to argue that it was because of his saving the king's life, which ultimately brought it about. But the thing is that
well, yeah, it's everything. It's his actions, it's his activity, it's his outlook, it's his belief system, it's his
right. But the Tzara that Mordecai, here's the point. Actually, the Tzara that Mordecai was in was really what saved them was the efforts of Esther.
Yeah, and his belief system and his relationship with Esther. But that's like what I'm trying to say is it's the entire package. It's his worldview. It's his. I'm trying to make it global. It's his.
Help Ariel for a second.
All right.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I was thinking in the same vein of Ariel that I think saying something about the nature of the tzaddik, meaning the tzaddik is aligning himself with reality, and within reality there are sometimes pain, but because of his worldview, he's naturally simply gets through it. It's not that he avoids tsar, but it itself, it's resolved through his tzidkus. Whereas the Rasha, by his jumping all over the place and trying to destroy this or that, comes and ends up in his place. Not exactly playing the safe as much as the Rasha.
I don't know if this is just a wording thing, but I mean, it does say pulled out, not getting through. So it's a different mechanic than weathering the storm.
Right.
Well, it's like this. It's like the analogy that I just thought of was, let's say you have it's like a domino effect. You start with one piece, but ultimately the domino is your life has many different avenues, many different lines of dominoes. You flick one, and ultimately the rest will just go down. And it'll create this certain natural consequences in the areas and every area of our life. With that first domino will affect everything.
Yeah, I understand that, and I still think my main objection to what you're saying is the word. Something about the passiveness of being pulled out makes it sound like it's coming from outside, whereas your explanation makes it sound like it's coming from inside.
Well, it's what's inside that's pulling him out.
Yeah,
I feel like he can just take the path you offered him in the beginning, which is to say that all of these internal efforts create a reality which he lives in, and that reality is external, and that can pull him out.
Yeah, you could definitely say that.
That's exactly what I was
getting at. I want to add one little bit that I think would help bring it home. I say it's not the best because it doesn't really imply anyone else, but a tzaddik, by virtue of his tzidkus, has many friends.
Yeah.
Meaning, because he's living cooperatively with other people, he will naturally be saved. When a good person is in distress, we know people rise up to help them.
Yeah, that's definitely more consistent with what we've been saying in the parak, right?
Yeah, although with your reading, Rabbi, I think I like the symmetry of the Rasha pulling him out. Just the way you're reading it, to me, it feels like a more
a Mishleic. It's got Mishleic poetic justice. But I also am wary that could be like a seductive quality of an explanation. Like it's pulling a move, But I think these other explanations are good. I'll throw you a bone, Ariel, also in terms of the to show you that Shlomo would agree with your type of approach. And in fact, I'm not sharing the whole screen. Hold on.
I like bones.
Yeah. There is a pasuk that describes what you're trying to say in the terms that I'm objecting to.
And this is Shlomo Melech, right? Just to clarify.
Shlomo Melech, the king.
The same guy who wrote Mishlei?
Same guy who wrote Mishlei. Same book.
Okay, good. I'm just...
Yeah. I just don't know where it is.
He wants to make sure it's a prime steak bone, not a...
Yeah. Let me see here. I think it's Mizima Tishmor Alecha. Let's see if this results in the search. Yeah. Okay. So it's describing the benefits of Mishlei. And it says like this. Kisavo chachma b'libecha v'das l'nafshcha yinam. When chachma enters your mind or your heart, and knowledge is sweet to your soul or pleasant to your soul, mizima tishmor alecha. Mizima is like strategic thinking will watch over you. Tavuna sinsareka, understanding will guard you. Lahatzilcha miderech ra. Oh, this is not the one I wanted. Just 1 second. Just 1 second. What's the phrase in Hebrew? Just 1 second. Where is it? Man, I don't know where it is. It says basically it's describing the benefits of Chachma. It's a pasuk that sounds like that. Well, let me just flip to the art scroll. It's easier if I flip. It's talking about the benefits of Chachma, and it says it like talks. Oh, there we go. Is this it? See, the problem is there are a lot of pasukim that talk about the benefits of Chachma in the first 9 chapters of Mishlei. So I don't know which one of those things it is. Basically says like when you lie down, it will protect you, and while you're asleep, it will guard you. And I don't know where it is. And there, what it's doing is it's basically saying, really, it is the beliefs and the lifestyle of Mishlei that you actively practice are going to help you, but the pasuk is portraying it as like an outside force that you are just a passive beneficiary of. So that's like what Ariel's trying to say here. Yeah. Okay, I'm happy with this interpretation. And I think that the however we take the mechanisms of the escape, whether it's other people, whether it's the lifestyle, whether it's this third approach that maybe Ariel has or maybe I have, I think it's good. Okay. Sorry. So Ariel's been chomping on the bit, so let's go to Ariel, and then Zach, I want to go back to yours also, and see if you have other avenues to take here.
Okay.
So yeah, Ariel, go ahead.
Right. So I will admit that I don't have answers for all.
That's fine. Partial approach. Yeah.
Now, what inspired me about my, this approach is what acher.
Oh.
Okay. Let's keep in the back of our minds for a second.
Okay.
So
I know where you're going.
Okay. So I think that the Tzadik, has a certain way of looking at life. He's basically there for the system. He's there to perfect it. He's there, he's living a lifestyle of tzidkus, for the society, for whatever. Now it happens. It does happen that you'll have, a lot of difficulties. You have, issues. You have stress. You have, things. You have a lot of obstacles that get to that point, and it'll almost feel impossible to achieve that ultimate goal, right? And it can undermine your entire belief system. It's like a trap. It could be a trap. It's like a trap, right? So the Tzadik is at a crossroads right now. The Tzadik, with his lifestyle and his approach, the answer that I just gave you can pull him out. But there's also danger. It's not all the time. And this was the issue with Acher. Acher fell into this trap. Acher ultimately fell off, and he became a Rasha. He was, whatever. He became, a bad guy. He took a third of the Jews and whatever, convert him to his religion, whatever it was. So I think that over here, that's like the Rasha that can come in his place. He can, ultimately he can become a Rasha. It's almost like a safeguard, like the Tzadik should reinforce himself, not just intellectually, but also psychologically, that, you'll have, hold on, Zach, you'll have, all the tools you need, not just from yourself, but from everything else around you, to support you.
I guess my question, like, I think it's an interesting, point or idea, but I guess my question is the thrust of this pasuk just to say that you should reinforce yourself?
I don't know. I kind of just added that in there at the end.
Well, I mean, I'll phrase that differently. Is what is the main point of this pasuk? Like, what's Shlomo telling us with that?
What Shlomo is telling you is that even tzaddikim can fall.
But did we need him to tell us that? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Meaning,
because we're just not, because we.
It's
just,
not the read that I'm bothered by. Like, I think it's a cool read. I guess
I'm bothered by the read. Yeah, I think it's clear that there are two people in the pasuk, and
no. Well, once you become a Rasha, you become a different Gavra. What's the problem?
Even in the
But then,
pasuk,
in what sense is the Tzadik saved according to your reading?
Well, didn't I say it was a radical shot?
Yeah, but there's a difference between a radical shot and something that's not a shot.
Wow, that's a burn.
Yeah. Look, Ariel, you told me yesterday that you want me to be honest with you, brutally honest.
Yeah, but that's about me though. It's not about my chachma.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I also would object if someone told me that Darth Vader betrayed and murdered my father. I think that's also a tough read. So and I think this is about as good of a shot as that. I think that's I
don't get the
that's a Star Wars reference.
No, I watched Star Wars, but Darth Vader murdered my father. I don't.
You're saying it was a clear lie. It wasn't like
Obi-Wan Kenobi told Luke Skywalker. He said that Darth Vader betrayed and murdered his father. Now, really, what happened was his father became Darth Vader.
Yeah, but what about when we say like a ger, like when a ger comes first, we ignore his price, like he became a new man. Why can't we say the opposite?
Yeah, I don't buy the second half of the puzzle, and the Rasha comes in his place, like two people. Yeah. I don't know. I don't buy it.
Well, yeah, different Gavra.
To be honest, I'm not bothered so much by that. I'm more bothered by
and
the first half of the puzzle also. I'm bothered by like
it makes no sense. Look, the idea that
it's better than the afterlife. Okay.
It's an interesting idea to say a Tzadik turning into a Rasha, but it doesn't make sense to say the Tzadik is saved and then the Rasha comes in his place.
Yeah.
No, he was. He became a Rasha.
Right. He's not saved. Yeah.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, I was using the opposite of the first half to explain the second half.
Or could Ariel
first half.
Wait, to help Ariel for a second, could you read the end as or? Like the Tzadik will be pulled out from distress, or a Rasha will become in this place.
No, it's not an or. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because then the end
gloves are ands or buts, but not ors. Yeah. Okay, so before we go on to Michael's approach, then Zach, do you have any other ideas about starting with that starting step?
Yeah, so I think just to recap, like the umbrella approach is that something is motivating, like as a byproduct of the Rasha's,
right,
who he is and how he operates, he's being pushed to pursue the trouble that the Tzadik is.
And just to support that first step here, I'll just point out the Rasha is acting in this pasuk, and Tzadik is being acted upon.
Which actually might be something like that might rub against the thought I have now, but
or you could always pull out the solutions that we have from my approach. Go ahead.
But yeah, so I mean, I was just saying, like, I like that as the umbrella mechanics, and I think that there's going to be multiple ways that that's true, and I think the way you explained it is, I think, a great example. And I think similar one to yours might be out of jealousy rather than hate.
Right.
So I think there's multiple mechanics, but another interesting one might be that like there's certain things that like by definition the tzaddik is like running away from. And as a byproduct of that, he's going to avoid certain situations. So I was thinking like maybe like a shady business deal, like there's going to be certain things that he doesn't want to get mixed up in.
That's
so
different kind of Sarah. That's good. Yeah.
Right. So he's just going to like not be involved.
Right.
But the Rasha, he's going to say,
that's good.
He didn't take that business deal. I want that business. I can make a lot of money real quick.
Yeah.
So he's going to be pursuing the very things that Tzadik is like avoiding, and he's going to literally take his place.
Okay, so that's good also, and I'll tell you why. That I think this also explains the passive thing, because the Tzadik is not even going to be like tempted by this thing. Like here you can say I think you can say that his value system just pulls him out of that that situation. Like he's just
he's not even thinking about
tempted,
the distress. He's thinking that he's trying to avoid like the he's trying to avoid bad things, so to speak.
Right.
It happens to be bad things come along with distress.
Right. So the tzaddik will be pulled out of bad decisions or scenarios which would result in distress. Right. The tzaddik, really, it's on account of his righteousness, right? On account of his righteousness
and pursuing good,
and pursuit of the good, will be pulled out of bad decision which will result in distress. But the Rasha, who is attracted by like the lure of power and self-advancement, will rush headlong into those same decisions, right? And suffer that distress.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, I think there's a lot of examples, but like in socially speaking, someone invites you to a situation that's not going to be, let's say filled with gossip or this or that, just like a negative thing. A tzaddik will avoid it. And the Rasha sees, there's an open seat. I can hang out with you. Like, he's diving headlong into the things that the tzaddik is like, no, thanks.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, Ariel?
May I redeem myself with a new approach, a less radical one?
Sure, as long as we're good. I think that's good, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, go ahead, Ariel, and then we'll do Michael's.
Okay. It's definitely not as radical. Okay, maybe you can say that like I'm focusing on the tzara, on the intensity of the tzara. Maybe you can say that it's the tzara that's really it's affecting the overall objective of the tzaddik or any person. Let's just take any person, right? A tzaddik, he can overcome that tzara, through his like analysis of the issue, or through his knowledge, or through his support system, or whatever. So he'll view it as an obstacle he can overcome. Yeah. However, but the Rasha, as soon as he sees that obstacle that's interfering with his, like ability, his goal, like he'll just, like abandon ship. Like he won't really, see the, he won't really, go forward, and that could also hurt him because, maybe if you just work a little harder, you'll get to your point. But the Rasha, the Rasha will overcome that by using himself.
Aren't they supposed to end up in the same place? I'm confused.
Yeah, the first part I understand. First part is good.
So why should they end up in the same place?
No, I mean like
the Rasha, it says.
Meaning if the Rasha, no, it is the same. Like the Rasha can, if you take the same, let's say you take the same scenario, it's two different mindsets.
Right, meaning the Rasha will end up in that state of tzara that the tzaddik made into, like the well, okay, let me say it the way I was responding to your explanation of the first half, and then I'll tie into the second half. I mean, this is the do I have a picture of it? No, hold on. I mean, I've made a ton of episodes about this, but I just gotta get the quote.
How do you get rid of that hand?
I can
Click it again.
I'll click it again.
Yeah.
Oh, lower hand. Okay, got it. I understand.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So this is the Marcus Aurelius Meditations 520. The mind adapts and turns round any obstacle to action to serve its objective. A hindrance to a given work is turned to its furtherance. An obstacle in a given path becomes an advance. And then the way that the coin that I have puts it, the obstacle is the way, the impediment to action advances action, what stands in the way becomes the way, you know?
That's so cool. There's literally a book on my nightstand called David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
And it's like literally that sentence.
Yeah, let me know how that book is. I was wondering whether to read it or not. So that is what I understood you to mean by that the tzaddik is pulled out of tzara because he faces a situation of tzara, but then he uses that as an opportunity for self-perfection, for overcoming his emotions, for like changing, whatever. He uses the tzara and uses it to advance his own pursuit of righteousness.
So
and the Rasha though.
Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, you finish.
So that first part works out really well, and that's why I perked up when you said about the tzara, that the tzara is not necessarily. Okay, I guess it's actually broader than I initially thought. The tzara is it could either be the actual like obstacle in the physical world or like the situation in the physical world, or it could be the pain and suffering that an ordinary person would get from that scenario, which would hold them back. It could be either one. The second half, I don't understand it quite as much. The Rasha comes in his place. So I understand you're saying that the Rasha in that very same scenario will become defeated, and will succumb to it. Is that what you mean by he'll come in his place?
Yeah, like he won't. Yeah. I mean, again, like I haven't really put so much thought into that second. I'm just.
Sure,
Yeah, I guess I'm stuck on the coming in his place because like that mechanic is a cool mechanic of like turning distress into favor, but how is that distress now being taken over by the Rasha?
Right. So real life example that happened today. You could pause the recording because I don't want it to.
Okay, sure.
It's nothing bad. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Okay, so
But
I also
this pasuk should make a difference about who
Okay, yeah. The whole Rasha talked of. Yeah, I do. I like the first half better than the second half. The Rasha coming in his place. Again, what makes this pasuk unique is we many times we have a pasuk where it's describing one decision-making scenario and saying this is how the tzaddik would handle it and this is how the Rasha would handle it. Here we're saying the tzaddik gets out and the Rasha in that same real world, they're interacting in the pasuk. That's what I want to get here. Yeah, Michael?
Okay, I actually, I'm a little bit abandoning my approach because I like the approach that Tzadik is saved by virtue of the friends that he has through his tzidkus. And then I think that answers the second half, meaning what does the Rasha do when he sees the Tzadik in pain? Mm-hmm. He rejoices. He turns on him. He attacks him. Mm-hmm. And that will be his downfall because people are coming to help him. And then he will be ostracized.
So that's interesting. So what do you have a type of tzara? And you're saying any type of tzara, right? Any type of tzara, the tzaddik will be helped by people because they recognize.
Yeah, I think like an interesting example is, I don't remember because I haven't seen it in a long time, but I think It's a Wonderful Life. Like it's a complete reversal, almost like a Purim story where like he's completely beat down, but because he has friends and ties in the community, they all come to support him. And the guy that was trying to run him out of town ends up like bankrupt, right? Because he was kicking him while he was down and everyone loves this guy.
Yeah, something about the order is weird. Let me think, what's bothering me about that? So the tzaddik gets helped out by his friends and the Rasha comes in his place. See, again, the Rasha is getting a different tzara than the tzaddik was in, right? According to you?
It seems similar.
I think he's getting like the same. Meaning, to me, the focus is that there are times when a tzaddik is in a state of pain. That's the subject here. And the Rasha is not like relevant to that. But when that occurs, when tzaddik in pain, he's going to be saved because of his tzidkus. And also, our Rasha is going to get destroyed because he's going to try and use that as an opportunity to destroy the tzaddik.
maybe an example like will help. It's
Yeah,
not like
sure.
like I'm just thinking aloud still, but
Yeah.
like let's say there's two shop owners or something, and they're competing with each other, and one is a Tzadik and the other is a Rasha. And then the Tzadik falls on some hard times, and Rasha says, "Oh, you know what? This is a great opportunity. I'm going to close the guy down." So he starts like sabotaging him while he's like going through this hard time. Whether it started off as just like some hard time in his family or whatever it is, but now the Tzadik the Rasha is taking this opportunity to like use this to derail the guy's life. And at first, like people weren't necessarily, they may or may not have realized what was happening in the Tzadik's life, but now they for sure see that he's like being attacked by this guy. So now people rally and they come to his store, they offer him help, they buy from him, and they end up like giving him all the business and not the Rasha. And now the Rasha like is out of business himself.
Okay, so I think so. It's interesting. It's very similar to mine, but I think it makes the ordering in the pasuk better because it's describing a sequential thing, right? So let's just write this up then. All right. So we have. This is now Michael's over here, not afterlife. Okay, so we have when the tzaddik is in a distressful situation, he will be helped by his friends and community since they recognize his goodness. That scenario of the Rasha will try to take advantage of the tzaddik when he is in this low point, but those very same forces which save the tzaddik will destroy the Rasha. Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's a good shot.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Why do you want the Rasha and the tzaddik to interact with each other?
Because the Rasha is coming in the place that the tzaddik was in.
It's coming in the place that the tzaddik.
Coming in his place.
I don't know that they have to interact.
Why can't you say that the Rasha will come in his place to mean that like in his setting, like in his setting, like in the tzaddik setting?
Because that's every pasuk. Every other pasuk in Mishlei is like that and doesn't use the word in his place. Like for example, like the tzaddik, whatever. Like you average pasuk in Mishlei, like the tzaddik gives money and is and becomes rich, and the Rasha hoards money and then becomes poor. It's like they're both in the same decision-making scenario, but there's no like interaction between them here. I mean, in his place, like you could.
No, I just want to squeeze out how you're thinking about it.
Like just as a side note, like I don't know that they for sure have to interact. Like it'd be harder to say they don't interact, but like I think there's like you can get some weird approach to.
Well, when I say interact, what I mean by interact is that the Rasha has to end up being destroyed by the same thing that was
coming toward the tzaddik. So like
he has to be active. He has to come.
Active. Yeah, right.
Wait. Sorry, say that one more time.
The tzaddik the Rasha has to be brought down by the same forces that the tzaddik got saved from.
Think of the term replacement. It's like replacement.
Yeah.
So like if there's like I can just give like a mushal though. It's not like really an idea. It's just to explain how like a mechanic where they're not necessarily interacting is like if there's a path and the tzaddik happens to be the first person on the path, and then there's like a danger, and the tzaddik doesn't necessarily see the danger. This is a bit convoluted, but like, and he, because of his tzaddik ways, decides to take another path, and the Rasha doesn't take another path, then he's the first one to stumble upon this danger instead of the tzaddik, and now people know about the danger. So it's
so it's funny you mentioning that, and then me just mentioning Indiana Jones just now. I was thinking of just the swapping out thing. It made me think in the third Indiana Jones movie, then this happens, right? Because the third Indiana Jones movie is about trying to find the Holy Grail, and so Indiana Jones and his father do all the research, and like his father spends his whole life like studying like how to locate the grail, and like the bad guys basically like take advantage of them and like follow them and like threaten them. And then when they get there and they have to pick the grail that gives you immortality, the bad guy who doesn't know anything about this just seizes the opportunity and then like ends up getting killed by it, and then like the tzaddik, who got him there really knows enough to have avoided that, and it works out. Yeah, loose example. Yeah, Rifki.
Yeah, can you just scroll down to like the last approach we did?
Yeah, the last one was number 2.
Okay, wait. So, hold on, I just have to read it.
Sure.
Yeah, so I was also wondering if we can add on to that and say that because the Rasha, like I thought it would be interesting if he wasn't necessarily like found out to be a Rasha before this situation.
Ooh,
and then
yeah, that's interesting.
As a result of him not helping, and everyone's like, what the heck? So then when he's in, like, by definition, like now he's even in more tzara than like,
right.
That's
definitely
much better.
happens. Yeah.
Fewer steps.
Yeah. That definitely meaning he'll be found out to be a Rasha by targeting the tzaddik in this state. Yeah. I'm gonna tack that on instead of trying to rewrite the thingy. In many cases, this guy's efforts to harm the tzaddik will expose him as a Rasha. Yeah. Okay. Good. Really quickly, I think we have enough good approaches here. And the Mefarshim were sufficiently vague that I didn't really see many ideas. I just want to like give a nod to some of the valid points in the Mefarshim that I think are consistent with what we said. So first of all, the one that's closest to I think it's closest to Ariel's is the Rid says Tzadik mitzar nechlatz v'husar min hashamayim. I don't know if husar means he will be removed. I think he'll be removed from it by heaven, meaning by God. Not that he'll be removed from heaven, but why shelo yikashel ba? Oh no, sorry. This is closest to Zach's, I think. Yeah. Sorry, to Zach's. To not stumble in it, meaning that the tzaddik being saved from distress means some situation that would cause him to stumble, and he doesn't stumble because he's a tzaddik. The only difference is that Zach didn't need to invoke Shemayim. Zach saying because he's a tzaddik himself. Because this person is just a tzaddik, then he'll be saved. But just the stumbling block is the thing that I thought was interesting. Then we have hold on. Mitzus I forgot if he says something. Let's just read him. When distress or trouble is decreed upon the tzaddik, and because of the merit batla hagzera, then that decree is nullified. Or when the tzaddik is pulled out from that situation of distress, the Rasha will come in his place. El hatzar hahi, to that very same distress. Okay, I don't know what that means. The midas adin, the God's policy of strict justice is not appeased until someone comes in its place. I don't know what that is. Okay, last point. The only point I want to read here. Rבינו Yona makes a very interesting point in terms of who the pasuk is addressed to, and I think this fits into all of our approaches. Okay. Tzadik mitzar nechlatz baladaber al malas tzadik ugnus Rasha. So this is coming to talk about the virtue of the tzaddik and the degradation of the Rasha, or the degeneracy of the Rasha. It says that sometimes there will be a decree on the tzaddik, and the Rasha will be substitute for him. And then he quotes a bunch of psukim. Okay, but then he says like this: Amar kol ele Shlomo alav shalom. Shlomo says all this laharchik kinas kavod harasha ulahavzos hatzlachosav, to distance us from being jealous of the Rasha's honor, and to make scornful his successes. So in other words, who needs to hear this pasuk? I don't know if this fits into all of our approaches, but he's saying that the person who needs to hear this is someone who is jealous of the Rasha and his lifestyle, and needs to be reminded that it's going to lead to some sort of like destruction, And I don't think that's unique to this pasuk. I just think that's a much more specific thing than than what we've identified. We said it's like someone who is prone to becoming a Rasha, but we didn't really say how you're prone. This is saying if you look at the Rasha and you see him being successful, and it's very easy to just be jealous. And let's just plug this into like some of the approaches we've taken here is let's say you have a Rasha who is parasitically seizing, taking advantage of people who are in situations of weakness, and you're looking at this guy and he's racking up millions of dollars on like by using illegitimate means, and you're like, wow, like, if only I could like get away with something like that. And Shlomo was saying, you think that guy's gonna get away with something like that? No, the thing that makes him make this decision is going to be his undoing. And so it's that point in Rבינו Yona stands regardless of how we learn this pasuk. So I thought that was a good thing to mention here. Okay, so let's just recap and then we'll stop for tonight. So we have my approach, which is that the tsara that the pasuk is talking about is created by the Rasha. The Rasha wants to bring about tsara to destroy the Tzadik. And again, I was inspired by the Haman thing, right? Haman devised a scenario to try to destroy Mordechai. Tzadik gets out because of his Tzadik lifestyle or his friends or whatever it is. And the Rasha's, very efforts to destroy the Tzadik bring about his own destruction. Okay. Then you have Michael's approach, which is that sequentially, the Tzadik happens to be in a situation of tsara. He will be assisted by people who recognize his value, and that will save him. Simultaneously, the Rasha will try to prey upon him in that scenario, and then that will either expose him as a Rasha or make the friends turn against him. And people will come to the Tzaddik's efforts. And it's interesting. It shows the Rasha is blind to that fact. The Rasha is not used to thinking about people in terms of recognizing goodness and wanting to pay it back, and so that's why he's gonna be blindsided by this. He's not gonna see it coming. Then we had Zach, who said that basically the Tzadik avoids, that's pulling out. He avoids scenarios that would bring about distress from the consequences, like shady business deals or like bad ethical environments. But then the Rasha is going to pursue those cases for self-advancement, and he's going to get that distress. And then Ariel's approach for the first half had to do with how the Tzadik relates to distress, which is that he'll use it not as an obstacle, but as a way to advance his path. And we just couldn't figure out the last part.
I actually think I might have like a way to complete Ariel's idea, and
sure.
It might have two similar ways to do it, but I was thinking as a starting move, I like maybe switching out even like equipped for war and from distress for his meaning like from the distress, like we're going to see this distress as almost like a good thing. So as a result of the distress, he's now, like equipped for some situation.
Right.
And this situation that is, let's say, coming toward the Tzadik and the Rasha is now the Tzadik is prepared for and the Rasha isn't. And so I was thinking, like, let's say there's a company and they have to fire someone. Now the Tzadik, and here's where like I'm going to add another point, which is that maybe that distress is the distress that comes with being a Tzadik. Like, I don't know if we need to say that, but I'll just say that for this example, which is that like you have to like deliberate, you have to deal with tough situations, you have to like be willing to say no to things in uncomfortable situations. So
it's the fact that reality doesn't go according to your ambitions.
Right.
That's
and so like so you're going to be in this company, you're going to have these situations, it's going to cause you distress, but you're going to always be thinking about the right actions to take, and that's going to equip you for the future. And at some point in the future, let's say they need to fire someone and because they're there's a pandemic and they just need a short like have less people, so they downsize, so they they're reviewing who to kick out. Now the Rasha didn't do all those things that Tzadik did in that same amount of time, right? So now the same threat that was opposing like a threat to both of them, the Tzadik is equipped for and the Rasha isn't, and so the Rasha is the one who takes the place of the situation.
Right. The Rasha who thinks that he's never going to fail or that the situation is never going to turn against him is going to be ill-equipped when it actually happens, whereas the Tzadik who has been preparing for this eventuality, or who recognizes that this can happen, who understands systems and realizes that, like,
to be honest, I'm not looking at it as he's consciously, it's a derivative, meaning because of this deliberation of that it takes being a tzaddik, it happens to be he's equipping himself, and the Rasha is
that's good.
How does that answer your question though about them like interacting with each other?
So it's the same situation of distress.
Yeah.
What was that?
It's the same situation of distress, that in that same company, right, the tzaddik is going to get out of this trouble, and the Rasha is going to fall right into this trouble.
Meaning, like, the tzaddik would have fallen prey to the situation, but now he's not, but the Rasha is. So the Rasha is, so to speak, taking his place.
Right.
Well, why does it matter if it's in the same company or not? I'm not following.
No, it's not. The company is just the example, but the point is that it's the same threat to both of them. There's one threat, and it's coming for both of them.
Right.
But isn't that just the same setting? Isn't that just the same? Like, isn't that like? But isn't that your point? Like, that's like every other Mishleic pasuk. Like, how is that different?
That's subject to a similar problem, right? Meaning that there's nothing in Zach's idea right now that is really explaining the word taktav in a way that is, doing it justice, right, Zach? It's the same question.
So maybe not enough justice. I'd say that there's still there might be gradients here, in the sense that, like, we're not just talking about like a tzaddik will succeed and a Rasha will fail. Like, it's at least this idea is like it's bringing them closer together to say it's like there's one threat to both of them, and because the tzaddik has prepared, so to speak, it won't hit him, and it'll hit the Rasha. Meaning, like, that same thing that would have hit him is now hitting the Rasha. So it might not be as fused together as some of the other ideas, but I think it's more than the base differentiation we normally.
I'm also trying to see how that is. It's like, how is what you're saying now different than what I was saying before for the second half of the pasuk?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I wasn't really sure what you were saying before about the second half of the pasuk, but this is really like trying to complete your idea. But
all right.
Yeah, I think let's stop for tonight. I'm getting a little I'm still a little tired from the wedding last night. And I think that these were good ideas though. And it's always nice, there's a certain like over the course of the last like a year and a half, seeing so many pasukim about tzaddikim and Rashayim, you would think that like it gets exhausted a little bit, but like no, like every pasuk just fills in a new feature of like the tzaddik and the Rasha, and it becomes a lifestyle in your mind, like this is a type of person, a way of thinking about the world, and just it's different angles, and it's good. It's that's Shlomo for you,
100%.
Yeah, he's a great man.
Yep, indeed. I got to read the thing that I hold on a second. Just to end off with the thing Facebook memory I shared because it's related to Mishlei. So when we used to, this is in Shall Have It, there would be I guess this time of year would be like recruiting season, and so there would be here we go. So 8th graders would come and spend a day at the school, and they would interview with the principal, Mrs. Eisenman, and so she would have like questions for them, and she would also have like certain standard questions to like just to see how they would respond, and so one of the questions she would ask them was like, if you could have any superpower, what would it be, and so she had like a stock list of like superpowers in case like they wanted to do that, in case like they were paralyzed or whatever. So I wrote of this Facebook memory. This is in 2018. So I said, today a visiting 8th grader refused to see the list that the principal had, saying, I already know what I would choose. I would choose to have the wisdom and understanding of Shlomo HaMelech. Okay. Nice. So then our principal was impressed, but decided to show her the list anyway. The 8th grader proceeded to go down item by item, explaining how wisdom and understanding would enable her to accomplish what many of these superpowers would accomplish. And I was like, oh, that's great.
Wow.
That's very cool.
So
that's a great answer.
Yeah.
Did she go to?
I did not. I don't write names of students on Facebook posts, and so I don't remember if the student ended up coming to the school or not. So I don't know who it is. So yeah, unfortunately, yeah. Okay. Have a good night, everybody. Until
you.
next
Wait,
time. Oh, and
what?
let me just
Thank
tell
you.
you.
Good night.
Let me just tell you right now, because I know I'm going to forget at some point. So this plan is the next 2 Mondays Shiur is on, and then the 2 Mondays after that it is not on. So the 3 and 10 yes, 17 and 24 no.
One thing I just wanted to say, because you were asking before about David and Goliath with Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
He actually goes through the story of David and Goliath with like a fairly careful reading.
Yeah.
It's actually worthwhile based on what he
Tehillim?
brings up about ancient war style.
Okay, that's good. Also, yeah, I was thinking about it in terms of Tehillim because I feel like it would would shed light on that also. Alrighty, have a good night, everybody. Till next time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Good night.